not seen their name till tryouts, and I was like, wait, what? Where have you been? Where have you been? Oh, like for whatever. That happens all the time. There are times when during Experience Exeter, a kid will come to the lacrosse table, and I'm like, they somehow we had not connected. So I would say that happens all the time. It's not a barrier to. There are open tryout to every season. We could have talked all year, and you make JV the first year. Like, there's just no. I think everything's open, and we're more just kind of like, we're here, we're a one-point person to speak to the teams, depending on the numbers we have returning. Like, there's so much influx. So I would say communicating with the coach is great, just as to learn about us, but it's not the end-all, be-all, by all means, and it's not also you're not signing your name in blood to like commit to us for 4 years. Like, it's just a part of the learning process. And then I think that we have a lot of kids who come to campus and they have so many interests that they aren't totally sure what they want to commit to, or which sport, if it's more than one, how will that line up. So I think that that's just something I mean, Adam and I were both multi-sport athletes in high school, and I would say we are very supportive of that. Exeter students have many passions, and we want to, as best as possible, support that while also kind of trying to maintain some balance so they're not spread too thin. I think that I saw a question in the Q&A about just, well, like, how do I show my potential, or what if I don't have film? And I would say, first of all, like, film, it doesn't have to be official film. It could be in your backyard, doing a skill session, running, like doing agility, anything is helpful, just to distinguish between people, because a lot of people have played sports for 7 to 8 years, and so I'm like, that's great that you've made that commitment, but it doesn't help me evaluate you. So I would say any film, it can be on a phone, is helpful. And then in terms of if you are a sport that doesn't need film, I mean, times, I know cross country is really hard because every course is different, but maybe times, and like, what was your rank in the pool of how many people were racing? I mean, a mile time is pretty like standard in a track, so I think like any kind of standardization for those, like crew, track, cross country, swimming, any times is helpful. And then there are a lot of coaches, like the crew coaches and the football coaches, will kind of walk around during orientation and might come tap you on the shoulder if you're like over 6 feet tall as a ninth grader, and like they just need bodies. So I think be prepared if you're a tall person to try and get crew might try and steal you, but yeah.
Awesome. So I think this would be a good time to start working our way through some of the questions that you have. So there are already a few in there. And again, you can give it a thumbs up if you have a similar question that's already in the chat or in the Q&A. It will help us stay organized with those questions. But one question, now I've lost it, but I will rephrase what the question is about opportunities to participate in your sport outside of the competitive season while you are here. And Coach White, you can maybe speak to that. You know, lacrosse season's in the spring. What do the fall and winter look like for your team?
So one thing to know about all the New England Prep School Athletic Conference schools, and if you're applying to boarding schools in New England, they're probably part of that conference, is we as coaches are not allowed to work with our teams out of season, at least not coaching them directly. We can go to a strength and conditioning program, we can do some off the field stuff, we could even coach some kids individually one-on-one, but we can't run a practice out of season. And that's in part to encourage our athletes to play other sports. Now, there will be times in the off season where we want to continue working together and developing, and this will be different sport by sport, but what some sports will do is have an outside coach come in to run some sessions. You will not feel any pressure from, like, for Coach Caldwell and I, we coach in the spring. We won't be pressuring you to do those development opportunities, but they're there for you if you want to work with your teammates and getting better in the off season. many of our athletes are also affiliated with a club outside of school, and they stay affiliated with that club, and they might be going to tournaments on weekends, doing other things together. So I would actually think it's pretty piecemeal in the off season from my perspective. One of my top priorities, because we have kids coming from all around the globe, really, playing for different clubs, we want to maintain those relationships with their clubs and make sure that their club coaches know that they'll be ready to go in the summer and they're developing at Exeter, but also if there's a time in the off season where everybody's expected to go to this tournament or a showcase, we want to support that and make sure that they're able to get there if at all possible.
Great, excellent. Thank you for that. The question, does a coach liking an applicant help applicants in the admissions process in any way? And I think this was touched on a little bit, but I just want to give an answer to that in that when we are evaluating a student in the admissions process, we are holistically looking at all the different pieces of what they've submitted, but we're also looking for not only their academic background and potential here, but also how they're going to contribute to the community and character. So athletics is a huge part of that, and getting coaches' feedback on that and where a student may fall in their program is helpful, but it won't get you in. So certainly, a student is going to have the same academic standings as a general applicant pool. But again, it's just going to help us understand you as a complete applicant and what else you're going to be bringing to the community. So just wanted to answer that one and check that off the list.
And I would also say the process is quite different than it would be at most colleges, where you commit to a college and those coaches go back and forth with admissions and get a pre-read it's called, and they can basically almost guarantee a spot to a kid. That's not how it works here. Everybody's going through the same application process, and coaches find out when you find out before the coaches find out if you're accepted or not. And so we're rooting for you and we're passing along information to admissions, but everybody's kind of going through the same application process.
There's also a good question about, if this keeps skipping every time I find my question, it like moves on me, so I apologize. There was, I think, a question about like, does connecting with other programs on campus, does the same advice apply? So for example, if you're a musician or if you're a dancer or you like to act, should you also be reaching out to the folks who lead those programs? And the answer is yes, absolutely. It will help you learn more about those programs and then learn more about you. So same thing on your candidate profile under your interests. If you write piano, include a video of yourself playing piano, the music department will receive that. Same thing, it goes for dance or acting or whatnot. So our website's a tremendous tool. Definitely go to those program areas and there's contact information right there and reach out. And again, some of that automatically will go to that department. All right. Talk about a little bit about the pathway. There's a question from JV to varsity. Or are you mainly just recruiting and connecting with students who are going to be impactful for your varsity team right away?
I think this will vary sport by sport at Exeter. So this is when you're trying to get to know the coach, if you are hoping to be on varsity someday, these are really good questions to ask. What does the JV program look like? Is there a track record of players moving from JV to varsity? And I would think, any program that has a JV program, the answer would be yes. I didn't grow until my junior year, so I was JV everything until I grew. So I always have a soft spot for late bloomers. And in our program, we have a lot of fluidity where we'll have varsity players maybe play a game with JV. We'll have JV players help us out with practice. And we had JV player this year earn a varsity spot by the end of the year. But the answer might be different sport by sport. So I think those are good questions to ask. You might also ask, if there's a JV sport, do they typically make cuts at the JV level? If you're somebody who really wants to play, but you're not at that varsity level yet, just see how many other athletes are out there. Like, for example, I know we have a lot of very competitive tennis players in the school. So if I'm coming in as a tennis player, I might want to know well, how many players on varsity, how many players are in JV, and what other opportunities are there for me to play? And there are, I see one question is about using the other facilities of the sport. If you don't make a team, yes, you can still play tennis. There's phys ed programs. There's all these ways that you can engage with the sport even if you don't make the team. But I would definitely ask the coaches that question, how they think of the JV program.
Great tip. One of the most, I think, rewarding things for all of us is to see the growth that happens for students when they begin at Exeter until they graduate. So as people, as athletes, as students. And so there's a question here about the development and, you know, how you come in at one level and then what are the factors that help contribute to your growth over time. So Alexa, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about the strength and conditioning program. I know there's team speed that a lot of student athletes do to really help that development. And for you specifically as a coach, maybe some things you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so we have a beautiful strength and conditioning facility and awesome coaches, and they're happy to work with both teams and individuals. An individual could walk in and be like, hey, I want to work on X, Y, or Z, and Coach Sui would help like build a plan for you. And those facilities are open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day for the most part. So that's awesome, and that is an opportunity for a lot of individuals to kind of take ownership for their own like strength and development that sometimes is hard to schedule in formally with the team. Coach White already talked about how some teams in the off season, let's say you play ice hockey, there will be a group of ice hockey players in the fall who will opt out of a sport that can start in your 10th grade year. So we mandate that 9th graders do a formal activity, whether it's athletics or dance or a PE class, every term. But then after that, you have one term where you can opt out of that in order to use that time how you want. And so a lot of athletes will use that as a way to prepare for their upcoming season. So in the fall, you have the ice hockey teams, girls and boys, they'll have their strength and conditioning program. Some of my lacrosse girls will join them and then manage the ice hockey team in the winter as a way to kind of develop and have that time for strength and conditioning. I think that, like I said earlier, there are tryouts every term for every sport and every team. So it is. I always hope that I am taking a handful of JV kids every year, depending on their development and space on my roster. But I think those are the success stories that are awesome, and I think that that's the conversations we will have with kids when they don't necessarily make varsity. Is if this is something that you care about, here's what you need to do between now and next February to prepare for the tryouts, and connecting them with other kids on campus so that they can meet to do wall ball together, do skill work. There's a co-ed like indoor futsal league in the spring, kind of beginning to get ready. Like it's all pretty informal, student generated, and we'll support as best as possible. The coaches will, and like helping like book the field house on Sundays from 8 to 10 so that our kids can have that access, even if we can't formally have a practice, so they can have captain's practices. Exeter kids are very driven, and they have all of the resources here, and so it's just knowing who to ask and how we can support so that they can kind of pursue their passions and develop those skills.
I would actually say, probably in addition to all that, the number one reason that athletes will come to Exeter and develop is because exactly what Coach Caldwell just said. You'll be around other driven athletes who are also passionate about that sport and want to head over to the weight room with you, or in our sport do one-on-ones, and you'll be at a boarding school with other people who also take it very seriously, or if you're a day student, you'll be attending that school and you'll be close by. So just like in the classroom, learning from each other, and as an athlete, kind of pushing each other and learning from each other. I think that's one reason that student athletes at Exeter have so much success and improve so much while they're on campus.
Awesome. All right, there's many questions about participating in sports off campus. So our policy on that is we offer 22 varsity sports, 63 different total teams. So if there is a sport that we don't offer, such as horseback riding, which was in there, or fencing, there is a possibility that you could get credit for that, but that's a separate petition you have to make with the athletic department. But for sports we offer that you want to participate in the off season, will one of you just elaborate a little bit about our policy for who's responsible for getting you to that practice? Are you allowed to go? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Because we have so many activities that we already offer, if a student has a passion outside of those activities, that would be the opportunity to take the term, the opt that I was just talking about, where at least one term you would opt out of those activities, and hopefully you could spend that time pursuing that sport. A lot of skiers in the winter, it's essentially like a club. There's a ski, what do they call it? There's like ski club. You can sign up because it's a club. They have faculty drivers, or the club sponsors drive, and there will be big bands, and they go, I don't even know where they go to ski, and it's just a bunch of Exonians who do that. Same thing with surfing. So I think it's one of those things, if it's one of your passions, what you want to do, then you could try and make a club, make it official, have a faculty sponsor, and they would be your point person for travel. Otherwise, it would be kind of up to you to figure out how, it would be up to you to figure out how you could pursue that passion while being here, because we can only provide so many activities, resources, people. We faculty, we do have lives outside of this too, and so I think I'd be happy to take an advisee every now and then to help them out, but it's not something I necessarily could commit to for a full year. So I think that would be a case by case, talk to your advisor and figure out how can we support you. We want kids to stay on campus as much as possible, because that's what the virtue of a boarding school is, that you don't have to travel. You don't have to go 2 hours to your club practice and then wherever to whatever, all of the different places you're going. It's we want to be able to provide as much as possible on campus, have people on campus, have kids connecting with each other on campus. So we also wouldn't want to stand in the way of a passion, but I think that's one of those tensions. I think you would work with your advisor, you would be assigned at the start of your Exeter career to kind of figure out what's the cost benefit analysis of this, how can we help you, and is this the best fit for you if this is something you really want to pursue.
Thank you so much. A couple of questions out there, and I'll let you take this, about reclassing. Is that prevalent? Does that vary by sport? How would that conversation go? You can take that. That would be terrific.
It definitely varies by sport. You see it a lot in lacrosse, and I think anybody that's on the club lacrosse circuit once they get to high school has seen this, where all of a sudden it feels like the kids are a year older, or what used to be class of 28, now they're playing with the class of 29. And we all understand the reasons for this. It's kind of undeniable that extra year of development, you'll just be bigger and stronger compared to your peers, especially if those other peers are also reclassing. And it is just a fact, for better or worse, that in prep school, you will see a lot of athletes have taken that reclass year. So whereas 19 might be considered quite old to be graduating from, let's say, a public school in the U.S., that's not really that old at all at a prep school. So just know that going in. We didn't call it reclassing back then, but I reclassed when I came to Exeter. I was young for my grade. I was small for my age, as I already said, and it seemed like it made sense for me athletically. I didn't feel like I needed it academically, but you know what? It helped. Having that extra year under your belt as a student can help you prepare for Exeter. It can also, while you're here, help you take more advanced classes and maybe take some of the really cool classes that are at the end of the road at Exeter when you get into kind of choose your own adventure territory. So it's always a family-specific conversation. Again, not to say the same thing again and again, but this is a good question to ask the specific sport and the specific coach in your specific sport. But it's very common. Don't think of it as like, oh, they're making me, like stay back or something, because it's more about making sure that you thrive at Exeter and get the most out of the experience. And if you want to play college athletics, also, so we're setting you up for the best journey possible toward achieving that goal.
Terrific. So we're going to spend about 5 more minutes tackling, I think, 3 main questions that have come up. One is about financial aid or potential scholarship opportunities, how to update your information, and then I'll link in the prospective athlete form before we're done. So just really quick, we do not provide any scholarships whatsoever, including merit scholarships, athletic scholarships. We are entirely need-based financial aid, so everyone is eligible to apply for that. And 2 really important pieces to that, like I said, need-based, which means your family will fill out the Clarity application. Based on that, it will be determined what your family's ability to pay is, and that cost or that grant will just sort of be deducted right off the top, and that's what your family will be asked to pay. So it's not based on merit or athletic talent. And the second piece to that is that our admissions process is need blind. So your family applying for financial aid will not hurt you in that process. We are not looking at students in 2 different categories. It's all just based on students we want to admit, and then we'll meet 100% of that demonstrated need. So there is that. The other question I think Rosemary had from Baltimore, she's asking about if she already submitted her candidate profile but maybe has some updates, can she update it? And the answer to that is yes. So don't hesitate because you're waiting to get everything in a row to submit that candidate profile, because you can update it through your Exeter applicant portal. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that yet, basically that portal you have access to about 24 hours after you submit your candidate profile, and in there you can update actually your grade that you're applying for. As Coach White said, maybe you decide later this fall you actually do want to reclass, so you can change that. You can add some multimedia links or make any updates you want there. Before we wrap up, I would like to give Coach Caldwell and Coach White, first of all, tons of gratitude for being here, but also an opportunity to provide any piece of advice for the student athletes out there who are just beginning this process. And I'm totally putting you on the spot, so thank you for fly.
One thing, again, just to echo what's been said a couple times, is congratulations. If you're watching this live, it means you're getting a head start on everything, and so you're in a good position. If you're catching up on it later, no problems. We've talked about there's plenty of different timelines. But I do think planning ahead, knowing that you'll be very busy in the fall, whether you're in season or out of season, and so trying to decide which schools you want to visit and go there. Take a standardized test as early as you can, because that's going to be a good indicator if you want to take them again. Or it could be, sometimes I'll be talking to a lacrosse player and we see those test scores, and as I said earlier, it could be that Exeter feels like too much of a reach academically, and that can help focus you where you want to be there. There's also sport by sport different showcases that you could participate in. So there are showcases in lacrosse that are specific. There's one called Road to Prep, and they're specific for athletes who want to be prep school athletes. And I don't know if every sport has one, but I imagine many of them do. And that's a great place to go in lacrosse. You can play in front of these coaches so we can see you live, which is special. A lot of times we don't get to see athletes live. I understand that would be harder if you're an international student or coming from the other side of the country. But you also get to meet the coaches afterwards and maybe collect some brochures from the different schools. So looking up that would also be very helpful, I think.
That was very thorough. I think I would only add that, like Ms. McPherity said, Exeter sports, your commitment to sports and you as an athlete is just us trying to get to know you better as a person in your application, and it's not your ticket to Exeter, and nor should it be, because Exeter is quite, it's a challenging school. It's not for everybody. And I say that to kids that I'm recruiting all the time, I want them to love high school. I loved high school. And so just like the academics, you have to want that same thing with lacrosse, varsity lacrosse, or whatever level you play, is we hope that you're doing that because that's what you want to do. Sports should be like the release from other things that you have going on in your life. It should be the fun, still intense, still very competitive, high achieving aspects of community, but also like the fun release, not the stress building pressure cooker. And so I think that at Exeter, if you're reaching out to a varsity coach, it would be our understanding that's something, it's like that kind of level that you want, and it's totally fine if that's not what you want. You could still email us being like, hi, I'm not really interested in varsity, or I'm not there yet, but I have some questions about your program, your JV teams, like the questions that Coach White was already saying. Reach out so you can still get to know us. I would say like varsity isn't for everybody, and unfortunately I can't take everybody. It's the worst part when I have to cut kids from the program, but there still are so many activities for kids on campus to do, and sometimes it's that blessing where you identify as something and life happens and you pivot and then you find something else that you're really, really good at. And so I think we try to help students find those passions, be honest with and kind of reflective, but also it's like, this is what they want. This is all coming from you, and hopefully you are doing your sports because you love it, and that we can only help you like grow that passion.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for those great tips, and I will just say that hopefully what you've gotten out of this time together is that students at Exeter are passionate about academics, but also a whole slew of things outside the classroom, including athletics. And there's really a team and a spot for everyone here, from students who are going to be competing at the highest varsity level into college to students who are just like wanting to try something for the first time. So please just reach out to our office, to our coaches. Did you all just see the link I put into the chat? Did that come through? Hopefully. It said it went to everyone. So that is our Prospective Athlete Forum. There were a lot of questions we didn't get to that were very sport specific. So go ahead and fill that form out. It will get you in touch with a coach, and their contact information is on the website too. So thank you again for joining. This will be recorded and will be available in your applicant portal. If for some reason you don't see it, feel free to reach out to admit@exeter.edu, and we will help you with that. So have a great night, and thanks again for joining.